Welcome back to Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life, the podcast. You're listening to Author's Corner, where we highlight and showcase our local authors. Today, I'm speaking to Ann Marachek, author of Unpacking the Attic. And Ann and I are going to be talking on the topic Healing the Inner Child from Childhood Wounds. Welcome, Ann.
Oh, thank you so much, Myrna. I'm so thrilled to be here. This is lovely.
You're very welcome. Yes. I love the title of your book and I love the content. So, which is why I invited you on the show. All right. So, let me give you guys a brief summary of Anne's book. Does your inner child still carry hurt and longing for acceptance? It is possible to rewrite the scripts of fear and insecurities holding us back. Unpacking the attic will encourage you to reflect on your own life and help you get the healing you are seeking. Many of us had to navigate childhood through a maze of broken relationships, dysfunctional families, neglect, and even trauma. Yet, as adults, we can empower the child we were to gain clarity, empathy, and forgiveness through the healing journey of retrospection. This book is a unique blend of memoir and healing practices. Author Ann Marachek takes you along in real time through the process of emptying her parents' home as they transitioned into assisted living. Told with humor, honesty, and empathetic insight, she expertly weaves the vivid stories of her childhood with compassion and the intent to heal and forgive. Amazing. All right. Well, I'm going to start off from a curiosity. Um, uh, I'm assuming that from the summary of your book, that once you started unpacking your parents' home, it
Mhm.
took you back to some childhood memories. I'm not sure if it's traumas or what, but can you share at least one of those memories that you experienced once you were, had this task?
Yes, definitely. I found that as literally the items from my childhood were taken out of the attic, that I was reliving memories that had been long forgotten and traumas that had been long suppressed. For example, I found my grandfather's pipe. Now, we used to call him Pop. This is my father's dad, so my paternal grandfather. And I realized there was only two words I ever remembered that he said to me, and they were sit down. As he and my parents would go into the kitchen, I would sit on the couch. I would hear laughter drifting in, smell dinner coming in, and I would sit there literally sometimes for hours.
Oh, wow.
They would come back into the family room. He would sit in his big, overstuffed green chair, stare out the window, and puff on this pipe until the room smelled filled with the smell of cherry wood smoke.
Mm.
And it still smells of cherry wood smoke. And memories are a really good trigger. Smells can really trigger a memory. Um, I realized all I ever wanted to do was sit in Pop's lap.
And you
And
never
so
did. Right.
the traumatic feeling of rejection was translated into my childhood mind as I'm a bad child. I am unworthy of being loved. I don't deserve to be loved because my pop doesn't want me.
Mm.
And that's how, in my 4-year-old mind, that experience played out. Well, I realized I was still living with that recording. I was still frightened child sitting on the couch, afraid to voice my truth, to get up, to move forward in life. I was stuck in that spot, in that memory. So my husband and I had traveled to China. Now, stay with me. You'll see why this is important. I know it seems random. And we were walking through a tour of Beijing, and there were vendors with tables and tables and tables of what looked to me like childhood toys, like paper dolls, pictures of houses and pictures of cars and pictures of washers and dryers and all kinds of random things. And so I asked our tour guide, "Is this for children to play dolls with?" And he was like horrified. Oh, heavens, no. He says, family members buy these for their deceased. In our religion, we believe when you pray with intent on an image of an item and then burn it, the smoke will rise to the spirit of the deceased and manifest in the spirit realm as that object. So they're gifting their deceased relatives.
Nice.
Well, I got to thinking on this and I decided to write Pop a letter. So at first, I just wanted to yell at him. I wanted to demand an apology, right? But then as I reflected on it, I remembered my mother had said years and years ago, Pop lost his lust for life when your grandma died. And I started to put that childhood trauma into a bigger context. And I realized there was nothing wrong with that 4-year-old sitting on the couch. Pop was broken. He was still so deeply grieving that his heart was locked down and he had no room for a grandchild or anyone else for that matter. Okay. Well, as a child, you have no contextual uh, circumstances in which to process, right? So I wrote him and ultimately in my letter, I'm sorry you were broken. We both missed out on one of the greatest joys that life has to offer, and that is to laugh with your grandchild.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And I forgive you.
yeah.
And I put that letter in a green ceramic bowl representing Pop's green overstuffed chair he used to sit in, and I lit it.
Yeah.
And now, as that smoke rose, the feeling of release that came over me was palatable. And I gave that little 4-year-old the permission to voice her own truth and to get up off that couch and to move forward. And it was transformative.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was just one of the many, many, many memories that I share in Unpacking the Attic and one of the many healing practices that I share. So I decided, really initially, I didn't want anyone to read this. It was my personal healing journal. But as I reluctantly let inner circle family members and friends read chapters, they all beg me, you've got to share this. You have to let others participate in this healing and this understanding that you've come through because they were being helped. And so that was the beginnings of Unpacking the Attic.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Like I said in the beginning, I love the title. Now, you say that there are 5 types of childhood wounds.
Yes.
And and we can analyze them, heal, and move forward. So let's talk about that for a minute.
Sure.
What are the 5 types and how can we analyze, heal, and move forward from them?
Yes. Well, we just talked about rejection,
Okay.
which often sponsors that feeling of unworthiness, unlovable. Okay. Um, Another is abandonment. Another is humiliation. These are universally true, responses. Betrayal and also injustice. And abandonment, for example, my parents had horrible fights my entire childhood. It was a broken relationship. And I was the innocent caught in the crossfire, always looking back and forth between these plates flying and angry words. And I remember many, many times my parents would fight while my father was driving somewhere. They'd fight in the car. To the point that my mother would jump out of the car at a stop sign and walk away. And here's the toddler strapped in the car seat in the back, watching my father drive away, and my mother's gone. And I have no way of knowing if I'm ever going to see her again or if my father will even take care of me. And I was abandoned over and over and over again. Well, these traumas started subconsciously playing themselves out when I got married. And it took a while. Actually, we figured it out as I was writing, unpacking it. I was constantly worried my husband was going to leave me.
Yeah. Yep.
Constantly. I was all, and he never did anything to warrant that. It wasn't his causation. It was just me constantly worried he was going to leave. And when I remembered all of those times of my mother jumping out of the car and my father driving away, I realized, as is so often the case, that when you are having an emotional trigger that doesn't seem to be relevant to what's actually happening in your adult life, it's usually you're replaying a trigger from a childhood memory.
Yes. Yes.
And once Richard and I sat down and realized what was happening, retrospection was such a powerful healing elixir. And the tears flowed, and he forgave me. I forgave myself for interjecting that negativity into our relationship, and we healed it. We got rid of it. Because now when it surfaces, I can just say, "Oh, that's just mom getting out of the car."
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, and I was able to find the source of that insecurity and to reframe it now with an adult perspective and understanding of the situation, so that when I remember it now, I don't go to the child's emotional response. I go to the adult analytical perspective.
Right.
And I forgave my parents. They had
Which is
they were not
so,
deliberately trying to cause me to have abandonment issues as a child. They were just so caught up in their own problems that they completely forgot I was in the back seat,
yeah.
you know?
And
So, again, that ability to forgive. Mhm.
yes. Our brains, I think a child doesn't begin it to understand until 14 or something. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Right. So,
You haven't been over my aunt's house as a child. Right. Right. So the trick is to break that emotional trigger, understand its source, reframe it in a larger context, and hopefully find within you the ability to forgive the adults that were there, because it was 99.9% of the time not their intent to create the wounds within you as a child that you experienced.
well, it's really interesting. I'm not even sure which is better. But people will say, "Oh, my parents have been married for 50 years," but they've fought for like 30 of those, and
Yeah.
you know,
That's
uh,
my
you
experience.
know, you know, then the children grew up and says, "I never want to get married," or whatever, because they're damaged from that relationship. And then you have the single parents that nobody's fighting, but they still have their own issues. So there's really, I mean, you don't know which is better or worse, right? But
Yeah, that's as individual as we all are. Each situation, each person, each circumstance.
yes,
But universally, I found that if you can give yourself the grace to face those fears and to go back in time and to love, be your own parent, love the little child that experienced it, and explain to them the bigger context. Literally, I have had talks with my inner child and explained to her that that little curly-headed child was not the causation, even though at the time she thought she was the cause of everything, right? If I could just be better, my parents wouldn't fight, right?
right, right, right.
Mhm.
Yes,
Right.
always happens. Yes,
Always,
always.
right.
Yep, yep, yep.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I understand that. So, all right. So once you were in your parents' home, but I'm assuming that their marriage lasted, right? Wait,
It did, and interestingly, Unpacking the Attic, as I said, was initially a healing journey for myself. And it was written as I helped my parents empty their home of 54 years and transition into assisted living.
right.
The week the book went to publication, my mother passed.
Oh, so
Yeah.
sorry.
So I found myself emptying the assisted living apartment as the book was published.
Oh,
Isn't that an
wow.
interesting full circle? And interestingly, experiencing some of those same childhood memories and triggers again with new items that I was seeing emptying out her apartment.
Wow.
Uh,
Wow.
so I guess it'll be its equal.
Yes. So sounds
Still
cute.
unpacking.
Yes. Wow. 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 Yeah. So let's talk about that experience. I'm assuming that your book shared that experience about
Yes.
how to transition transition your parents to nursing care. I have a
Yeah.
friend of mine that actually has that service where she helps, people, pack up and sell the house and, help them going into the new location. So there's a service that she does for that. So what advice do you have for anybody that has to go through that?
Yeah. Well, interestingly, in the back of Unpacking the Attic, there is actually a website that you can contact for a free bonus chapter that's specifically that. It's a step by step by step guide on how to physically unpack a home and transition. But in general, what I would say is have a very clear vision of what your goals are. So my parents had decided they were not interested in making a profit from anything in the house, but what they wanted to do was repurpose and gift. So that would be your starting point. And then we literally had little sticker dots that we put on items. Everybody had an assigned color dot. And we went around the house and we put our little dots on things that we thought we might want to bring to our own homes.
Okay.
Okay. And if there
Great.
were 2 dots on an item, then the negotiation started.
Okay.
Excuse me. So that would be the main thing is to start with a clear, focused, what your intents are, what your goal is. But then after that, I think it's a matter of being willing to let go.
Yeah.
There are things that I definitely had an emotional attachment to or association with that were precious to me, not for any kind of other monetary value, but sentimental, which is the only reason why I kept
The
Puff
visit.
Pie. Right.
Yes.
To me, somehow it symbolized the whole process. And obviously, none of us smoke pipes, so it wasn't really worth anything to anyone except for my emotional attachment. So I brought a pipe home. Um, Obviously, if it's a tool, who would be best to use it? Um, if it's furniture, who needs this or that item. So it's a matter of being very realistic. And, honestly, there were so many things that were nice, but I've had my own home for decades. I don't need the item. My daughter was starting a new home, so it was good timing for her. She had empty rooms. I did not.
Yeah.
So, these sort of practical assessments. But also, I would say, realize it's gonna take a lot more time than you think. My parents thought I could empty their 6,000 square foot, 3-story home in 2 weeks. Not happening.
Wow.
It ended up I
Wow.
thought it would take, like, 5 weeks. It ended up taking really to be totally done closer to, like, 5 months.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a huge home.
Mhm.
Also, I would say get help
Right.
because even with me cleaning every day, I had to bring in the cavalry and hire a cleaning crew at the end because you would not believe what's underneath furniture. It's like, "Oh, thank you, Lord, for a good immune system."
Anybody that's moved knows.
Who knows? Oh my gosh. And just ask for help. Tell your family, tell your friends, tell your circle what you need. Reach out. We found a moving company that ended up being just marvelous by a referral of a friend. And interestingly, one of the things that started this whole journey for me, one of the big strapping young men that came in to move said, "Miss Ann, And I'm like, do I know you? He's like, you taught me piano when I was 7. Well, he changed quite a bit.
He remembered you.
I suddenly had this flash of remembrance of him when he was little. And that's what really started the flashes of remembering myself when I was little.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
That
Yes.
was the
Yes.
impetus or the trigger that really started the whole process. And much of the book was actually written while I sat on my parents' porch swing and waited for moving trucks coming in and out, or cleaning crews coming in and out, or real estate agents coming in and out. I had lots and lots of time to sit on that porch swing, and I began journaling
Journaling and remembering.
and
That's great.
remembering.
Well, it's a task that we don't really think about, which is why I wanted to talk to you. Whether we're unpacking because they're downsizing, unpacking because they're going to assisted living, unpacking because of debt.
Right.
When you're your childhood home, then usually it's good memories, but it could also be bad ones, right?
Sure.
And
Right.
what you were able to do was you were able to heal by reflecting on what you told yourself, because that's all you do. We make
Right.
assumptions
Right.
on things, and I like the one that you said, yeah, you expect your grandfather to hug you and kiss you and play with you, whatever, and he tell you to sit down there and don't move. Yeah, the first thing you would think is you're a bad kid. Of
Right.
course. I mean, there's no other conclusion.
Right.
So,
Right.
it's good for the readers to be able to put themselves in that position and reflect through your story. So that's good.
Right. 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 And really, so many of the things we experience, even though the details may vary, the emotions are universal.
Right. Right.
And that's why I talk about betrayal, injustice, humiliation, abandonment, rejection. All of us experience those things
Right.
in some context. And so by going through this with me, I allowed myself to be very transparent, very vulnerable, which takes courage, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you focus on, how can I give back? How can I help? What is my soul's purpose? And how does this fit within my soul's purpose and my goal? And I think we're all here to support and help and love each other. And what better way to be loving and supportive than to share in a journey that can help heal others?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Right.
Unique, and it's great. It's a great book. But yeah, because somebody that's reading it would transport themselves back to their situation.
Exactly.
And unless they read yours, they wouldn't even have remembered that. Just like how
Exactly.
the moving guy took you back to your childhood. Sometimes we need a little push to go back
Yes.
there, and what you did was understand the story you shared about the abandonment issue with your husband. You were able to connect the dots, and it's great to be able to
Exactly.
do that. Okay.
Exactly. And
Okay.
that's what this journey does. It helps you to put your own life into perspective and to connect those dots and to put those memories so that they're not triggering that emotion, but in a bigger context, and find the grace within you to forgive the adults that were in your life and the circumstances. Because you know what? When you forgive someone, they no longer have free rent in your soul.
Yeah, yeah.
It
Yeah.
releases you.
Unforgiveness is like drinking poison, expecting the other person to die. You're the one that's dying with unforgiveness.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
you're
Well
the
put, my
one
dear.
that's right, right. Yes. So that's amazing. Yeah, looks like a good read. It's looks like it's got a lot of tenets. You've got understanding childhood wounds and marrying it to the issues you're having as an adult is helping you to put your childhood memories into a context and a box and forgive those who hurt you. And so it's got, and then it's got the practicality of how do you unpack pack up your
Right. Literally. Yes.
right. So it's got like 3 prongs to it. So that's amazing. All right. So tell our listeners where they can pick up a copy of your book. If you have a website or social media handles, you can also share it here now.
Yes. Yes. It is available on Amazon. So just type in Unpacking the Attic or Ann Marachek, and you will find Unpacking the Attic. And it's available as an ebook or as a print copy. And I am on Facebook. I am on Instagram. And I have a website, which is very easy, Ann at annmarachek.com. That's ANN at ANNMRACEK.com. Very simple, annmarachek.com. I also have my own YouTube channel, which is My Best Friends Live in the Woods. And you can go there and find my other novel, which is My Best Friends Live in the Woods, being presented as a TV show, as a series. And that is for empowering parents, adults, teachers to teach mindfulness and compassion to a younger audience. So my passion is not only the child within, but the children of the world. So 2 facets.
Yes, 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 yes. Listen, if we can um help parents prevent some of these childhood wounds, I
Yes.
mean, our community would be so much better or so much healthier because a lot of our troubles start in the home as a child.
Yes.
I
That's
mean,
right.
but I shouldn't even say in the home, in the school, in the schoolyard. It's when's childhood. Yes,
Yes.
it
Yes.
packs a big punch and affects our life forever unless you do the work to clear them.
Right. Right. Right.
A
And
book like yours helps, right?
you do need to do the work, but it's freeing, it's joyful, and it's kind of like going to the gym and exercising. You never want to go there to begin with, but you feel great when you come through it. You feel amazing. Yeah.
That's very true. All right, and yeah, so thank you so much for being on the show and sharing your story and your book with us, Unpacking the Attic. I will have a summary of our conversation on the show page, which is myhelps.us, and I will link out to your book, your website, and of course your social media handles. Anybody can follow you if they wanted to connect with you. All right, guys. Well, listen, thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Author's Corner. As we wrap up, Anne, any last words?
Just remember, always ask yourself, how does this align with my soul's purpose? And forgive and love yourself.
Yes, for sure. Yes.
Mhm.
Once we are aligned with our soul's purpose, everything in life seems more beautiful.
Right. Follow your passion. Yes.
We achieve happiness, and we really can't unless we're, moving in the direction of where we're supposed to be going. So those are great last words. I concur. All right. So listen, guys, thanks for tuning into this week's episode. Go pick up a copy of Anne's book, Unpacking the Attic. Take you back down memory lane from your childhood, and maybe it will help you to release some of those childhood wounds. All right. Thanks for tuning in. And until next time, namaste.